Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take your questions, your curiosities, and we really try to boil them down, get to the core insights fast.
Get right to it.
Exactly. And today, we're going way back, prehistoric times.
Mm-hmm.
All thanks to a listener who was curious about this creature from India called Ankistrodon.
Ankistrodon. Right.
Yeah, and we've got some really interesting material here that tracks its whole discovery story.
It's quite the scientific journey, actually.
It really is. And the big question, the sort of central mystery is, was it a dinosaur? Because that was the initial thought, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And how has, our understanding changed since then?
That's the core of it. It's a great case study in how science works, really. Full of twists and turns.
Okay, so let's get into it. Where do we start? I guess, what is Ankistrodon, or what was it thought to be?
Okay, well, the sources we have identify it as an extinct genus. It belongs to a group called archosauriforms.
Archosaur. Okay, let's unpack that a little. What does being an archosauriform actually tell us? Where does it sit?
Right, think of archosauriforms as a really significant branch on the reptile family tree, a big one.
Okay.
This group eventually gave rise to, well, the ancestors of dinosaurs and the ancestors of modern crocodiles.
Ah, okay. So it's related, but not necessarily a direct ancestor, and definitely not the T-Rex image we might have.
Exactly. Related, but sort of its own thing from that early branch. And crucially, the material tells us it lived during the early Triassic period.
Early Triassic. No, isn't that right after the Permian extinction, the really big one?
Spot on. The Great Dying.
So a time of massive upheaval and, well, recovery, I suppose.
Precisely. And the place it was found, the Panchit Formation in India, dates right back to that key recovery time.
Yeah.
It gives us a window into how life started bouncing back.
Fascinating. So this creature, Ankistrodon, is living in this recovering world. And when its fossils were first dug up, the first guess was theropod dinosaur.
Yeah, that was the initial interpretation. Maybe meat-eating, maybe walking on two legs, the kind of classic dinosaur idea.
But that didn't stick. What changed their minds?
Well, as they looked closer, especially at the bones, the skull, specific anatomical details,
Yeah.
it just didn't quite fit the theropod mold.
Mm-hmm.
So paleontologists reevaluated, and our sources clearly state it was then placed in a different family, Proterosuchidae.
Proterosuchid. Okay, another term. What's the deal with this group? What makes them distinct?
Proterosuchids were, they were early archosauriforms. Quite primitive in some ways.
Right.
They often looked a bit crocodile-like. Some had this very distinctive downturned snout, kind of hooked.
Okay, I can picture that.
And they were some of the top predators around in that early Triassic world. This is before true crocodiles really took off and before the dinosaurs dominated.
So, important players in their own right.
Absolutely. And the person who first formally described the type species, Ankistrodon indicus, was Thomas Henry Huxley, back in 1865.
Huxley. Wow, okay. A major figure in biology and paleontology.
A giant, yes.
So, mid-1800s, maybe a dinosaur, then reclassified as part of this earlier Proterosuchid group. But, this story doesn't stop there, does it?
Not quite.
The sources bring up this idea of synonyms. Okay, let's break that down. What exactly is a synonym in biology?
It's basically when you have different scientific names that have all been applied to the very same organism, the same species or genus.
How does that happen? Just confusion?
Sometimes. It can happen if, say, different researchers find the same thing around the same time, in different places maybe, and they aren't aware of each other's work. They both give it a name.
Right.
Or it can happen later when, more research shows that something originally thought to be distinct is actually the same as something named earlier, or that its classification needs updating.
And Ankistrodon seems to have collected quite a few of these names. The list here is Epicampodon, Epicampodon indicus, the Cadontosaurus indicus, Chasmatosaurus indicus. Wow.
Yeah, it's like it had several identities over the decades.
What drove all those changes? Why associate it with the Cadontosaurus or Chasmatosaurus?
Well, it really reflects how science pieces things together over time. With limited fossils, maybe only teeth or a few bones, you look for similarities. And perhaps early on, based on what they had, it seemed to share features with Thecodontosaurus, or later Chasmatosaurus. But as more complete fossils emerged, or as our understanding of those other groups refined,
people realized, hang on, this actually belongs back with or is Ankistrodon.
Exactly. The relationships became clearer, and those other names were recognized as synonyms for Ankistrodon indicus.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The material says that in the 1970s, Romer, a big name.
Alpha Romer, yeah. Very influential paleontologist.
Right. Romer in 72 actually suggested Ankistrodon was a senior synonym of Proterosuchus. What did that mean?
Okay, so in taxonomy, there are rules about naming, the principle of priority.
Yeah.
Basically, the first validly published name for a species or genus is the one that should be used. That's the senior synonym.
So if Ankistrodon was the senior synonym,
then Ankistrodon would have been the correct name for the genus, and Proterosuchus, which was named later, would have become the junior synonym. We'd potentially be calling all Proterosuchus fossils Ankistrodon.
whoa, that's a big potential shade-up, calling a well-known creature by a different name.
It would have been, yeah. A significant change.
But that's not where the story ends, is it? Because our sources point to even more recent work. This 2023 study by Ankistrodon, what did they find?
Right, Ankistrodon's more recent analysis took another hard look at the fossils using modern methods. And their conclusion, as the source states, is that Ankistrodon is likely a nomen dubium.
Nomen dubium. Okay, Latin. Sounds doubtful.
That's exactly what it means, doubtful name.
What makes a name doubtful in this context?
It's used when the original fossil material, the type specimen that the name is based on, is too fragmentary or lacks unique diagnostic features.
Meaning?
Meaning you can't reliably distinguish it from other similar animals. You can't be sure it represents a genuinely distinct species or genus based only on that original material.
Okay, so why did Ankistrodon conclude this for Ankistrodon? What was the specific problem?
The main issue highlighted in the study was the teeth. The Ankistrodon holotype material consists mainly of teeth and jaw fragments.
Right.
And Ankistrodon's analysis found that these teeth are, well, basically indistinguishable from the teeth of Proterosuchus.
No unique features, just in the teeth.
Pretty much. Teeth are often what gets fossilized, but if they don't have special characteristics, and that's all you really have for the original Ankistrodon, it's very hard to say it's definitively different from Proterosuchus.
And adding another layer, this same 2023 study identified another Proterosuchid from that same place, the Panchett Formation, Sampsorosuchus.
That's right, Sampsorosuchus. And the source points out that Sampsorosuchus is now considered the only currently known valid Proterosuchid from that specific formation.
So, Ankistrodon might be out. Its identity swallowed up by Proterosuchus, or maybe even this new Sampsorosuchus.
That's the current thinking, based on Ankistrodon's work. Sampsorosuchus has more distinctive features in its skeleton, beyond just the teeth, that allows scientists to clearly define it. So the material originally called Ankistrodon, it probably belongs to Proterosuchus or maybe Sampsorosuchus, but the Ankistrodon material itself isn't distinct enough to hold up as its own valid genus anymore. It's doubtful.
Wow, it's like peeling back layers of an onion. From Dinosaur to Proterosuchid to maybe the main Proterosuchid to now possibly not a valid name at all.
It perfectly illustrates the scientific process. New data, new methods lead to revised understanding.
And the sources really map this out, mentioning Huxley in 1865, Romer's big classification in 1972, and now Ankistrodon et al. In 2023. Each step built on the last.
Exactly. Huxley gives us the starting point. Romer provides a broader context, synthesizing knowledge at the time, and Ankistrodon applies the latest tools and comparisons to refine things further. It's that cycle of discovery, analysis, revision.
It's a shame we can't show the pictures here, because the source material mentions these illustrations, side views, back views of the holotype.
The original specimen, yeah.
And even a cross-section of a tooth. You can see how critical those visuals would be for making these comparisons.
Oh, absolutely vital in paleontology. Every bump, every ridge, every curve on a fossil can hold clues. It's all about detailed observation.
Okay, so let's try and bring this prehistoric puzzle together for everyone listening. Ankistrodon starts as maybe a dinosaur.
Then recognized as an early archosauriform, a Proterosuchid.
Identified by Huxley, gets tangled up in synonyms, nearly becomes the senior name for Proterosuchus.
Only for recent research to suggest its teeth are indistinguishable.
Making it a nomen dubium, a doubtful name.
Right. And leaving Sampsorosuchus as the only confidently identified Proterosuchid from that specific Indian formation for now.
That is quite the scientific roller coaster for one ancient reptile.
It really is. And I think the key takeaway isn't just about Ankistrodon itself, but about how science works, how understanding evolves. Initial ideas get tested, refined, sometimes overturned completely as more evidence comes in, or as we find new ways to look at old evidence.
It's a fantastic aha moment, isn't it? That idea that, what seems settled can always be revisited, that scientific facts aren't necessarily set in stone forever.
Absolutely. They represent our best understanding based on the current evidence, and that can change.
Which kind of leads to a final thought, maybe, for you listening. Well, if our picture of a creature like Ankistrodon can shift so dramatically over 150 years, what else that we think we know about the past, or even the present, might change as we learn more?
That's a great question. It encourages that sense of, well, humility and constant curiosity, doesn't it? Always being open to new information.
Definitely something to ponder. Well, thanks for digging into the complicated story of Ankistrodon with us.
My pleasure. It was a fascinating dive.
Join us next time for another deep dive. Keep those questions coming.